Good evening for a new session with May Shidia Foundation. The Media Institute is conducting this panel entitled The Role of the Lebanese Diaspora During Lebanon's Current Crisis under the project Renewing Lebanon's Political and Economic Structures in partnership with the Public Diplomacy Section at the U.S. Embassy in Beirut. We have top guys from the United States, people who pitched for Lebanon for many years that are making big difference on many levels, but we're gonna dig with them more and more to see what's missing in this country, why this country is malfunction, what's really happening to Lebanon, and especially what does the US think about Lebanon in this very critical period? Do they have any kind of interest in Lebanon? Especially we see many shifted positions in the region. We have a guest from United States, from Los Angeles all the way, Anis Garabet, chairman of the WLCU, Commission of the International Relations. Ambassador Edward Gabriel, he's a top guy in Washington who is working so hard for Lebanon. He's the president and CEO of the American Task Force for Lebanon that has been around for a while. Also, we have another warrior in Washington. I call him a warrior because he's been around for many, many years. Dr. Joseph Shbaili, president of the Lebanese Information Center in the U.S., and he's a good friend as well as Ambassador Edward Gabriel. Tony Nissi, president of the Committee for the UN Resolutions for Lebanon, NCCR Secretary General. He's always between New York and Washington and also advocating for Lebanon. This is the priority for these four guys here, top guys here. They're all from Lebanese origin. They're all Lebanese, and they carry Lebanon in their heart every single day. Let's start with Ambassador Edward Gabriel. Well, actually, Ms. Ambassador, when you see this shifting that is happening in the region, we've seen the foreign minister of Syria paid a visit to Saudi Arabia. Do you think now the U.S. is really in trouble to read the message, what's really happening in the region? Because some people are saying that, enough from the influence of America in the region. Now we have new allies. China is on the line. We've seen this historical meeting between Saudi Arabia and Iran and China. What's your take on that?
Thank you, Alain. It's good to be with you and our friends from across the country on this, I think, very important topic. So, look, the importance of a bilateral relationship is that it's bilateral. We help each other from time to time. And of course, we have our differences, but net, I think the relationships are very strong throughout the region. We think in the United States that the rapprochement between Saudi and Iran is a good one, and it will be very helpful to U.S. interest over time. And of course, they can help us with those relations, and also we can help them in other relations in the region. So I think the relationship is strong in that regard. It continues to be strong across the region, from Morocco to the Gulf. No other country in the region and no other country in the world can match U.S. aid and support to the countries of the Middle East and military support. So I think, yes, there will be changes from time to time, differences from time to time. But net, I think what's important is they're talking to one another and coordinating on these various missions.
Ambassador Gabriel, let me just add up this question also. So many Lebanese people and also people that follow politics, probably, many of you might also have this answer difficult because we don't know yet what is exactly the U.S. policy on Lebanon, if there is any policy.
So, look, there's good and bad in terms of how I look at U.S. policy towards Lebanon. Let's remember that the U.S. is the largest donor country to Lebanon in the world, $700 million last year. I think that places it in the top 10 recipients of foreign aid in the world, and it's a country of 4 to 6 million people, depending on how you count. Also, we've given it a lot of attention in terms of looking at the presidency and leaning in on that. The United States has made it clear in that regard. It also has been clear in its strategy to say, look, we're not going to give money to a bunch of corrupt government officials anymore. And they have led the international community in that regard. And they're willing to put their teeth.
But this was Trump's policy in this regard. I'm just trying to. So are we maybe later we're going to dig more how the system works. But are you saying that this administration is adopting what Brett McGurk drew in the past administration?
So the effort started in 2019 when the demonstrations happened, and it has been tightened ever since. The Biden administration could have gone to another level, and it has in terms of tightening down on not allowing any government, any Lebanese government agency to receive funding from the United States. So the fact that it was started perhaps in 2020, the policy was, and continues till this day, is only a tribute to the continuity of U.S. foreign policy. So I'm not really sure what you're referring there, but there have been other things too. The strengthening of the LAF, and you could say that continues, but the livelihood account, us realizing, the United States realizing that the Lebanese armed forces, families need help. That has been a recent policy of the Biden administration. The maritime border dispute, it wouldn't go forward under the last administration, but President Biden has let it be known that it was important. And I think also on electricity and energy policy, we'll see some changes in the coming months that will be helpful. Having said all that, I think it's important for the United States to realize two things. One, they've got to make it clear what they mean by the government electing a clean, capable, and reform-minded president, and expressing what the consequences are to Lebanon if they don't elect such a president. I think they need to lean more into that. Secondly, when it comes to IMF reforms, I think the government of Lebanon and other countries that are behind the IMF staff level agreement to get passed have to realize that you cannot shove it down the throats of the parliamentarians, the new opposition parliamentarians especially. In that sense, I think there has to be a facilitated process to listen to the parliamentarians. We're glad to see that IMF has invited a group of parliamentarians next week to come to Washington to have that facilitated discussion, hopefully.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Of course, we're going to come back to you and dig more into information, or maybe more like awareness. How does this government function? And if the Lebanese task force achieved more goals during this administration or the past administrations, we're going to go back to you. Dr. Zafish Bailey, how many years have you been working for Lebanon in Washington?
Well, I started the LIC in 1999. So
when Clinton was president, then Bush the son, then Obama, Trump, ending with Biden. Who you think, which administration did really care the most about Lebanon? Of course, different timing. We were under the same occupation. There was maybe, we cannot ask for more. But in your understanding, which administration was easy to deal with, to talk with, and why?
So, of course, we have to understand that each president has its own priorities when it comes to foreign policy. And the president in the United States, is basically the major decision maker overall, but specifically in foreign policy. And we call it here the President's Doctrine. So each president has a different approach to the issues of a certain country or a certain area. And the way we have to understand, of course, and especially, I'm talking to the Lebanese, is that, there is no president or administration that will start their foreign policy, their priority, their national security interest by saying, okay, well, let me look at Lebanon first, and then I look at the rest of the world. So one president might be saying, as he said, when Clinton was president, it was very important for him to achieve the Middle East peace. At the time, it was between Syria and Israel. So that was a priority. And there might have been some risk of Lebanon paying the price. That's a long discussion we can get into at some point. But that was a priority for President Clinton. It did not work. With Bush, 9/11, the issue of the freedom agenda, Lebanon became more important because Bush was looking at the idea or the principle that, well, if we can change the regime change in this part of the world, we're going to end up with having friends everywhere, and we won't have to worry about terrorism and opposition to the United States. And Lebanon was an important element at the time of the Bush policy. With Obama, there was the shift to Asia. There was the priority for the Iran deal. The Syria war happened. So that sort of changed also the approach to the Lebanese issues. For Trump, it was obviously Iran, and subsequently how to fight the Iranian arms in the region, one of them being Hezbollah. And then now for President Biden, there is a different approach to the Middle East. I mean, they call it the integrated Middle East. They want to have more of a, I guess, bilateral relation between the different countries, a region that's connected, economic deals, development, etc. So each administration, you could look at it you can understand it in a different way. And here's what could affect basically this one administration policy when it comes to Lebanon. So it does change from one administration to another. There has been some continuity, and Ambassador Gabriel talked about it regarding, for example, the support to the LAF, the overall assistance to Lebanon. The principle, there are certain principles that have been enshrined, and they continue from one regarding Lebanon, from one administration to another, related to Security Council resolution, independence, sovereignty, territorial integrity of Lebanon, which is something obviously that's very important for the Lebanese people, and it is in the interest of the U.S. as well. So there's I wouldn't say there is no continuity at all, but we should understand there are nuances and differences between one president or one administration and another in approaching the Lebanese problem. I'm going to end with saying one thing that I would add that's becoming very important for this administration. I guess it started with the previous one, but very important for this one, and it's one of the tenets of foreign policy, which is fighting corruption. And we've seen, more, I guess, sanctions being imposed on elements in Lebanon who are involved in corrupt practices. So that's an additional element which I think is welcome by all of us, whether Americans of Lebanese descent or I think the Lebanese people.
When you sit in closed meetings with people who has influence on Lebanese policies or whatever U.S. policies on Lebanon, do you push for sanctions?
We discuss obviously the priorities of fighting corruption. We think that's a major thing that should be, and we're glad that it's now as I said earlier, an important element of U.S. foreign policy in general, not necessarily in Lebanon. But in Lebanon, we know that corruption, I mean, it's not just us talking. The World Bank talked about it. They said that the crisis in Lebanon now, which is, among the top 3 worst crises in the world, is caused by those who were in charge. I mean, they call it a deliberate depression. And we know this is caused by corruption. We know that also the governments have ignored a number of recommendations, a number of requests by friends of Lebanon to enact certain reforms. So yes, if you ask me, well, should these individuals, these people who are in charge, who have brought the country to ruin, should those be sanctions? And yes, obviously, this is something that's I think would be a unanimous demand from, again, the people of Lebanon and from the friends of Lebanon as well.
Dr. Zavjbali, we're going to come back to you and ask you also what you think about many issues. Let me go now to Tony Nissi, President of the Committee for the UN Resolutions for Lebanon. NCCR Secretary General, again, just introducing you to the viewers. Mr. Nissi, who you think cares about Lebanon more? The people in diaspora like you guys or the people in Lebanon? And why?
Listen, Ala, you cannot achieve anything unless you have a bridge from the diaspora and the inside. So if you remember during the 1559 time, and Joseph knows as well as also Anis, when we were asked that by the Security Council, if we issued a resolution for Lebanon, will the Lebanese people took the streets? Will they accept an international resolution for Lebanon? And we used to say yes. And I believe the diaspora, they made their duty. They were able to lobby and to advocate for international resolution for Lebanon. And the people of Lebanon took the streets and they accepted this resolution. That's why the Syrians were able to leave the country. So I believe whenever there is a joint effort between the Lebanese diaspora and a body inside Lebanon knows what he's doing, and he has a clear political agenda and knows how to implement this agenda, I guess only then we can achieve things to Lebanon.
Mr. Nissi, when you say the Lebanese diaspora needs to be united, so you think it's not united because of the political affiliation or probably also for different mindset, different, I don't know, what do you think?
No, let me be very clear and very frank. When you used to work for Lebanon, the diaspora, we used to be many from all the countries. And I believe the WLCU, they played a huge role organizing these issues, the chapters from all around the world, getting them to the European Parliament and getting them to the States and advocating for Lebanon to be sovereign from the Syrian occupation. So we used to be much more than who is working right now in the States as diaspora. This is first. Second, unfortunately, yes, we see that somewhere here in Lebanon, there is a lack of trust between the Lebanese politician and the US administration. And also there is a lack of trust between the US administration and the Lebanese politicians. We haven't been able yet as diaspora and as people working for Lebanon and lobbying for Lebanon in the States and in Europe to make this bridge happen. Until now, it's still broken.
Mr. Nissi, don't you think that in the last election that the same people came to power, they still ruling the country, but who give them that credentials? The people, right? So basically, the US government has to deal with this government, despite of this lack of trust.
This is exactly, Alain, what the United States looks at the situation in Lebanon. They were telling us last year that let's wait for the elections. Let's see what kind of parliament you're going to have, who the people are giving their votes to. And unfortunately, we still see that the allies of Hezbollah, they still have a huge bloc inside the Lebanese parliament, able to block everything. And among the so-called resistance who are fighting the Iranian occupation for Lebanon, they are not really united. They don't have a one agenda. I know that my friend Ed Gabriel, he invited a few members of parliament to go and to talk to the Congress, but I believe this is not enough unless you have something in hand, you have a program, and you can stick to this program. The United States, whenever we used to go and do the lobbying and advocacy for Lebanon, they used to tell us, how can we help you? And I think you remember this, Joe. We used to say, this is the United States. This is a superpower. Are they asking us, how can they help us? This is stupid. And it took us years and years, more than 10 years, to understand how a country like the United States, they function. It's a democratic country. They need to have projects. What kind of values and what kind of projects are we providing the states? What kind of plan we have in hand to go to the Congress and to the State Department and also to this administration to tell them Lebanon is a necessity and we can implement it. I don't think we have this yet, but this is not going to stop us from fighting for Lebanon. And we will keep the people here on this panel and everybody in the diaspora. And we will keep fighting to reach a sovereign Lebanon, hopefully.
Maybe in the next intervention, we'll ask you what would you recommend for Gabriel to do more for Lebanon. But let me just go to Anis Garabet. Mr. Anis Garabet, so basically, do you think in these times, Lebanese expats are afraid to invest in Lebanon? And what would you do differently to encourage them to come and probably invest? Because sometimes when you have a crisis, maybe it's an opportunity for investors to come and maybe do smart investments?
Okay, first of all, thanks for hosting me, and I extend the regards of Professor Nabil Shartouni, the world president of the World Lebanese Cultural Union. The expatriates in general are reluctant to invest in Lebanon for many reasons. First and foremost is peace and stability. If Lebanon is going to be used as a launching pad to throw rockets on Israel, the investors are not interested. If a state within a state needs another 40 years to liberate Jerusalem from Lebanon, the investors are not. If some of our neighbors decide to store their ammonium nitrate at the port or burden our infrastructure and jeopardize our economy with 2 million refugees, the investors will be looking elsewhere. While all Arab nations respect their sovereignty and restrict any sort of resistance from their borders, Lebanon is still paying the highest price, sacrificing for Palestine more than all of the Arab nations combined. Meanwhile, Arab nations are prospering, moving steadily towards normalizing relationships with Israel, and we're still trailing. The second problem is corruption. No foreign entity will invest in any enterprise if corruption still exists on the administrative and judicial levels. The IMF has advised us to implement reforms. So did the European Union. The United Nations Special Coordinator of Lebanon has called for what they call the 3 R's: reform, recovery, and reconstruction. But we're not listening, like we're not helping ourselves for others to help us. The whole world is begging us to fix our deteriorated system and help ourselves. Instead, we legitimize corruption by re-electing the same members of the corrupt establishment. Last but not least, the country needs to maintain a sound and modern infrastructure. No business owner in its right mind would risk its money and resources with no electricity, no transportation, and possibly, God forbid, no internet and communication.
Thank you, Mr. Grabert. I'm going to get back to you as well. Let me just go back to Ambassador Gabriel. I want you to walk me here to how you come up with what best interest for Lebanon. You listen first, Your Excellency, to the Lebanese people, to their needs, correct?
So let me just start by addressing Tony, by agreeing with him that we're not doing enough to help save Lebanon. I agree with him, and I welcome him and others to join with Joe and I on the great work that I think we're doing to really make a difference in the Washington scene. I think it's better than ever before, but it can be better. And we welcome Tony and others that want to join together in a positive way to build each other up and help each other move the Lebanon forward, not tear each other down. With that in mind, let me just make a couple of comments and agree with you on something, Alain. And that is, let me just tell you that ATFL on sanctions, we support sanctions on corrupt individuals who are abusing human rights and harboring terrorism. There's no clear, we're not going to mix words about it. Sanctions are very important. The way that we make policy in Washington, and I'm proud of this effort that we've got going, we've joined with more than 24 policy experts, the who's who of Washington, Lebanon policy, from all the think tanks in Washington. We have joined together and we consult regularly with vested interests in Lebanon and in Washington that care about Lebanon. And in that sense, I think we've done a very good job in presenting now 5 policy briefs to Congress and the administration, which has affected the reform package, sanctions policy, humanitarian aid, IMF reforms, education policy, energy policy, security policy through the LAF and the internal security forces. And we continue to, and it's not enough because to answer your question, Alan, on a recent visit to Lebanon, we came home with the feeling that if we elect a president tomorrow, and if we pass IMF reforms tomorrow, the Lebanese people will not feel the positive effects in the short term. They won't even feel it in the medium term. We've got to do more, as is expressed here, and we are. We're going to come up with an emergency recovery plan, and we'd be happy to share it with others who care about this idea. But we've decided that while the government is trying to get its act together, we've got to reach the villages and municipalities of Lebanon, the people who are hurting with solar power, with water treatment, with waste treatment, with education, with agricultural policy. We need community groups to hold municipal governments together and address the needs of their people. So we are coming up with some new policies as well. We've been invited by the House and Senate to present those, and we hope that the administration will listen to us as well, and for a new kind of approach in the years ahead. It's not perfect.
Believe me, Ambassador, Lebanese are hoping to see more effective sanctions on people or key players in Lebanon. There were key players in corruption, key players in obstructing democracy, block it from its origin. Like, for example, you have the Speaker of the House does not call for his member of parliament to come and try to elect and for a new session. It's like he's in recession now for a long time. It's like he owns this House of Parliament. So do you speak about these issues that someone is trying to block this democracy, and it's like it's his home, it's his house, he can call it whenever he wants, he call it off whenever he wants? Is it acceptable in 2023?
So if you were to ask Speaker Berry about our last conversation with him, he will tell you it was a very difficult conversation with us. We laid it on the line. We lay it on the line whenever we go to Lebanon on behalf of the people of Lebanon from here, listening to them. We then we met with more than 60 parliamentarians on our last visit. And we explained to them as well that you can't replace something with nothing. If you don't like the candidates that are being pushed by Berry and others, then who's your candidate? You've got to come to a consensus, and as well as reforms. You can't replace something with nothing. We had a very frank discussion with Prime Minister Mikati, and he said, you know, if they don't like what I put down, tell them to put down something of their own. That's exactly what we did. We said, and guess what? They're working together today. The last 3 weeks have been a very productive time period. I don't know if they'll get there, but it's hopeful that a group is now back at the invitation of IMF, which we advised to do this process with. So we'll see if it works out. The problem is you've got, for every opinion in Lebanon, you've got, 5 people who disagree with it. So it'll be tough, but we won't give up. And let me just say one thing. I was not born in Lebanon. I never saw Lebanon until I was 44 years old.
Wow.
But there's a diaspora in this country, and their blood is tied to that country. And those people should realize that they've got a friend in us. We're not going to give up. They're going to have a partner with us as we struggle through this together.
Also, I want to just point something very important. We see the Syrian refugees, they get health care, they have free education. and they are situated in Lebanon for no reason. There's no more reason that many of them should not return home, because they go for vacation to their hometown. They come back, they work, they take. Sorry to say that maybe so many of people are not gonna say I'm discriminating now, or I'm racist, or I'm prejudiced, but that's the truth, and I'm gonna say it loud.
Let me jump in here with you, Alan, because I largely understand the problem on this. In our last 3 visits to Lebanon, everyone we talked to brought up the refugee question. Look, there's a couple of things we have to do. We came home and decided that we need a very special study group to look at the refugee issue for Lebanon, because it's not sustainable. Okay, so there is an international standard that we have to live by. It has to be voluntary, safe, and dignified for somebody to go home. That's the international standard. But we don't think that's good enough. We don't think it's good enough just to say that. We think that we've got to do 2 things, and we now have created a major steering group and study group of experts from UNHCR, the World Bank, other think tank experts, government officials have come together. We're on our 2nd meeting now, and it's got twofold purpose. One is, what's the truth of the matter? Are there people going back and forth across the border, and in what numbers? Is there discrimination in the schools between the Syrians getting educated and the Lebanese? Are the host communities getting the kind of aid they need in balance with the refugee aid? What's the immigration policy around the world, and how can we tweak it to provide for more opportunity to move people? That study should be done in the early fall, but boy, are we with you on this one. We've got to do more than we're doing within the international realm of that I mentioned. We're not going to break international law or expectation, and we're going to find the truth of the matter that will guide us on the policy prescriptions.
I'll get back to you, Ambassador Gabriel. Always interesting conversation with you to know more about what's really happening between the Lebanese demand that you represent nowadays and this administration. Dr. Zavish Bailey, what's up with this administration? Do they understand what's really going on in Lebanon, or they have different priorities?
We all know.
They wanted the maritime border so bad. We've seen the American pressure. They got it done so quickly. And later on, they disappeared. They let us just deal with our matters. The last statement of Barbara Relief, she said, the U.S. the Lebanese presidential election is not our business, it's Lebanese business. We understand, but when they need their business done in Lebanon, they bring different approach. When they don't need, or they have no interest, they just let us be dealing with this problem.
Stress and really second what Ambassador Gabriel, what Ed said about this whole effort being done lately with the Lebanese when it comes to priorities and needs of the Lebanese people. And there's an important element there which has to do with the responsibility of the Lebanese official, Lebanese government, Lebanese representatives of the people, members of parliament, etc. It can't all be the work of Lebanese Americans or the work of US officials. So, for example, when it comes to Syrian refugees, the Lebanese government hasn't done enough. I mean, they stopped registering refugees. They don't control the borders properly. They can, I heard it from UNHCR. They said, if we know, the Lebanese government works with us on those Syrians who are moving in and out of Syria, then they're not refugees anymore. We are willing to strip them of the refugee status. But the Lebanese government is not doing it. If you're talking about work permits, you know that less than 20% of Syrians who work in Lebanon have work permits and pay taxes or pay dues for the Lebanese government. When the Lebanese government is broke, and they can, of course, raise so much money if they implement the proper rules when it comes to Syrian workers, for example. And I can go on and on and on. When there were some recommendations about establish organized camps like what's been done in Jordan and other places. The Lebanese government refused to do that, etc., just to control the presence and the we don't have statistics, we don't have data. I mean, you hear numbers like, oh, there's 2 million, 2.5 million, etc., but who knows exactly what the number of Syrian refugees are and who's responsible besides UNHCR on. So I'm giving this example also because there are other issues. I mean, Ed mentioned the IMF deal, the dialogue that should be happening between government and parliamentarians. It's been over a year now that the deal is on the table, and I agree with Ed. And
don't you think those corrupted figures or leaders in Lebanon, they don't want any reform so they can keep business as usual?
Yeah, that's true, and that's why. I mean, that's why when we talk about why isn't the U.S.
target people, for example, because there is a sense in Lebanon, and you know it, Joseph, that okay, we target people, also corrupted, but we all know that all Lebanese know who are the real corrupted people. Why these sanctions does not target them? I can call you names if you want.
Listen, I mean, I'm going to quote a Treasury official that told me one day when we had this discussion. They said, when we designate someone, we want to make sure that if this person takes us to court, there is no way they can win their case. So they have to have a very, very fully established proof and tight case against this individual or this group or whatever. It's not like, oh, we know that this person in Lebanon, or they get so many reports about corruption in Lebanon, but they can only designate people when they have a complete file on them and they have all necessary proof. That's why, Alain, as you notice, because you can sue the U.S. government for designating.
Do you think Gibran Basir is the only corrupted figure in Lebanon that they have his file sealed? What about other leaders that ruled Lebanon for many, many years, like the Speaker of the House, Nabih Berri, like we're talking about John Blood himself, that he cited himself that were corrupted, and many other figures. This is also given the Lebanese people some sense of or feeling of, and they are disappointed.
Well, I can tell you. I mean, there's a former minister, Ali Hassan Khalil. We can name so many figures. Lately, as you know, the Rahmi brothers, Yusuf Finianos. I can go. There has been senior figures in Lebanon. I mean, these are officials, former ministers, well-known people in Lebanese politics that have been designated because they were very accurate reports. They were very clear proof that these guys were involved in corrupt practices. Now, if you tell me, well, is there a dossier on Nabih Berri that's not been completed in Treasury? That's why he hasn't been sanctioned? Yes, maybe. I don't know exactly what's happening. Treasury does not share, as you all know, they don't share that information. But they're very active in gathering information about political personalities in Lebanon who can be involved in corrupt practices. And again, when this dossier is built properly, you're going to hear the sanctions. It has happened, and it has happened in the past couple of years, and you'll probably see more of it in the coming month or years.
Okay. You've been meeting with senior officials in administration. How do you feel this meeting is taking place? Do they really care about what's really happening in Lebanon, or their mind is set what's happening in Ukraine and the shifted positions of Saudi Arabia, UAE, and the changes that are taking place in the region are more important than just focusing on a small country like Lebanon, just bringing headaches and nothing beside headaches?
Yeah, honestly, sometimes I'm surprised how much America takes care of Lebanon when sometimes the Lebanese don't take care of themselves. I mean, really, Ed explained it. I mean, the largest donor to Lebanon is the United States. They're involved in. Look at these visits happening lately. Assistant secretaries, other visits. You have military people. You have congressional delegations, etc. That's visits. You have this whole diplomatic effort with the French, the Qatari, the Saudis, the Egyptians regarding the presidency. And I can go on and on and on. The diplomatic efforts by itself is important. You mentioned yourself, Ala, the deal with Israel. I mean, of course, the United States, the president himself wanted this deal. That's true. But it's also a deal beneficial to Lebanon. It's good for Lebanon as well. And the energy deal. They, imagine, I know for a fact the US ambassador, our ambassador in Lebanon, is bringing together the Minister of Energy and the World Bank to come to an agreement about how to resolve these issues of reforms that the Ministry of Energy should be doing in Lebanon. And and I'm thinking, wow, if I were the ambassador, I would have told the Lebanese, you don't want the electricity, you don't want the reforms, okay, well then don't get electricity. So there's so much effort put in Lebanon by US officials that sometimes it is amazing. I'm giving you some example. I can go on and on. Now, if you tell me, well, where is Lebanon placed among the priorities of US foreign policy? It's no secret that yes, now there is it's been called clearly a great power competition. There is a competition with Russia and China. Yeah, that's we haven't seen this for decades now. After the end of the Cold War, that's a major headache for the major priority for US policies. There's all these issues. You mentioned Ukraine, of course, and then when they look at the Middle East, where to go with the Abraham Accord, nuclear Iran. That's the big thing for any administration. So yes, Lebanon cannot be the priority today, but at the same time, as I said, there's a lot being done from this administration and prior ones, but we're talking about this administration now in particular in looking into Lebanese problems and trying to help. But the main issue, and I think Ed mentioned it, we as Americans, as Lebanese Americans, just official, we need partners in Lebanon to work with. Tony Nissi mentioned it before. It was mentioned so many times. If we did not have Lebanese partners during the Syrian occupation, Lebanese willing to stand up and saying, enough, we want Lebanon to be free, this could not have happened. Even if George Bush, with all his might and power, even with all the monopoly that America had at the time in foreign policy, even if they wanted Syria out, it could not have happened if the Lebanese...
Okay, so from you, the Lebanese should help themselves first without always depending on superpower countries to come and solve their problems. So I want to go to Mr. Nissi again. So Mr. Nissi, you said that the diaspora groups are not somehow united. They're working as individuals. Ambassador Gabriel, he said, we have open hands. You want to come? We're more than happy to come. And we need your help. We need your knowledge, probably your efforts, your energy. You add up to our pyramid probably, and we can proceed better and better. Let me just ask you this question, Mr. Nissi. Why you were thinking this way? You have Washington, you know Washington very well, you know where to knock your doors. So why do we have an ego here to work with each other? Is it sort of ego, as Lebanese ego, that we want to make this? Because let me give you a stupid example. The resolution of 1559, every Lebanese figure from Lebanese America, oh, I did it. No, I did it. No, it was like show-off thing when you help your own country. Is it also a sense of show-off or sense of ego among Lebanese community deep inside?
Yes, you're right. Listen, Alain, first of all, many things of what my friend Ed has said already, we are doing as well the same. And this is, unfortunately, we need to unite our efforts. And actually, I would love to talk to you when we finish this conversation and try to find some grassroots together. Yes, on individual basis, Alain, we all know what's happening around, and we are all trying to approach the issue the same way, and we are all doing the same issues, and we are spending lots of efforts. These efforts needs to be united. This is first. Second, whenever you talk about the Lebanese diaspora, we need to define the Lebanese diaspora. Is the Lebanese diaspora the Lebanese holding the Lebanese passport living abroad, or the Lebanese diaspora are all the Lebanese that left Lebanon during the time of the Ottomans? This is very important, Alain, and this is very important for us as diaspora. In the WLCU, and correct me, Anis, if I'm wrong, we used to say the Lebanese diaspora is more than 12 million. But actually, if you look at the people holding the Lebanese passport, you will never reach 20% of this number. So how are we dealing with these people that they don't have the Lebanese passport? Are we able to get them on board and engaged in the Lebanese problems? Can we get them to invest in the Lebanese nationality, which they don't have. I urge my friend Anis to have a project for that, to distribute a Lebanese identity from WSU to all Lebanese abroad, even if they don't have a Lebanese passport. We need them to be engaged inside Lebanon. This is first. Second, I would love to tell my friend Ed that they are doing a huge job. We're following up what they are doing. But what we really need is an American and European APAC. If you consider Israel the enemy, and I think the people living in the States cannot do that, but even if you do that, it's not easy to learn from the enemy. I guess there is some experiences. Somebody tried to do it for a long time, but we haven't seen any real results yet. And you can do it with the capacity that ATFL can do it. You can do it, and we can help. So Anis, I would love to help you, me and Joseph and everybody else, if you want to get the real diaspora involved in Lebanon. Joseph, as well as Lebanese Information Center, you have a huge work to advocate.
So you complete.
So I'm from you that you complete each other here.
I need to see this, Alan. I believe the Lebanese inside the diaspora and inside Lebanon, they can save Lebanon. They don't need the States. They don't need Europe. We can save Lebanon. We need to have a plan. We have to get everybody on board.
Without the Lebanese people, diaspora in Europe, how come?
No, I'm not saying without them, with everything we're doing. But listen, Allah, the United States, as Joseph said, and as Ed said, they are paying millions of dollars into education inside Lebanon. They are paying millions of dollars to support energy inside Lebanon. They are doing as much as they can to support Lebanon. And if you read, the report of human rights issued by the State Department, you can see that it wasn't really tough against Lebanon because they are willing to keep supporting the left. And they are willing to keep supporting the institutions in Lebanon, the private institutions as well. We as Lebanese, we need to have a plan because we're losing the education here. We're losing the top-notch universities, and we are losing the private sector in education. We need to save this section to be able to have true Lebanese that can work for Lebanon. If we lose education, we're going to lose Lebanon. This is first. If we lose our factories, we're going to lose Lebanon. We need to have a sustainable project as diaspora. And we need to get everybody on board, even those that they don't have the Lebanese passport, to get them involved and to help their relatives here inside Lebanon. If you hear the reports, Alain, you can see that $6 billion entered Lebanon last year from the diaspora. It's not enough. It's not enough. We need to have a plan as Lebanese, and we can do that. And whenever we have a plan, we go to the State Department and we go to the White House and we go everywhere, and we can tell them this is the plan. The people living inside Lebanon and the diaspora abroad, they have a plan, and we need your support. When 1559 has been issued, we used to go to the States and to tell the Americans, you need to implement 1559. You know what they used to tell us? Listen, guys, you need to convince your partners inside Lebanon. You're saying that Hezbollah is an internal matter. Go convince your internal matter that the 1559 is good for them. So the international resolution issued by the Security Council, they have been issued to the people of Lebanon. And the people of Lebanon needs to find a way to implement it. Not the governments, not anybody else.
Thanks, Nissi. Moving to Mr. Garabet. Mr. Garabet, so what are the main concerns or fears of the expatriates to invest in Lebanon?
Yes, I answered this question previously. Let me be positive here. If Lebanon and the diaspora can communicate, we can do wonders. We might complain about immigration, and usually we complain about brain drain and its negative impact. But immigration could be transformed into the greatest national treasure for Lebanon, or opportunity Lebanon has ever gained. And that's, as Tony said, $6 billion, $7 billion. So immigration, after all, is not bad.
But Mr. Garabet, don't you think
LDE, Lebanese Diaspora Energy, was kind of bridge with the people between Lebanese people here and back home and the Lebanese diaspora? Business people were meeting in conventions in different cities around the world. How did this been translated
among
I attended one or two LDEs, and the main purpose I attended is to mingle with Lebanese, to meet Lebanese, which is a very good thing. But if LDE was to be transformed into a political tool to gather the immigration or for political reasons, we oppose that. So there is a good thing and bad thing about it.
Is that the model that you are proposing, something similar to LDE, to be always active and around so they can bring Lebanese together from all over the world? And my brother is American Lebanese as well. He decided to hire people for his company in Lebanon instead of hiring people in the US. He paid them salary in dollars. Those people are graduate from different sectors, from different fields. And this happened because he was not feared. He didn't have any concern. He saw the best of the two interests, the interest of his business in America and also the interest of these youth that leave their university without a job. Is it something that you also can do more and more, you guys that owns a huge $1 million and maybe some of them billions in the US that could contribute to the people back in Lebanon, not just by giving money, by put them to work?
Okay, let me give you two ideas that we have experienced in the past. Instead of creating, for example, honorary consulates, like our politicians like to do, and they distribute the honorary consulates also for political reasons, they have mushroomed all over the world. Now, we can do instead something called commercial consulates. In the midst of the world industrial cities, such as Silicon Valley and others, and this would enable Lebanon to gain direct exposure to leading
chambers,
chambers, like Lebanese chamber.
Yes, similar to yes, but they call him like the military attaché. It's a commercial attaché. So we can start something. We can start the first step towards creating job opportunities in Lebanon.
Are you in touch? I want to see if you're on the right track, if you're thinking what I'm thinking right now. When I say on the right track, that means we're on the same page. Mr. Garbat, have you ever called the commercial attaché at the Lebanese embassy in Washington? Please, I need to know if you are advising just to advise or also you're doing what we have to do.
No, we have never approached the attaché.
Why? You're advising us today, but yourself, you are very well known in your job. You are known for put the connection together, networking together. Why yourself did not call the commercial attaché at the Lebanese embassy? And you'll be surprised. Actually, he's very active. He also is waiting for your efforts and your
know-how and in your database that you have and your experience to also put into consideration.
Okay, this is a good idea that we will consider, but also we're going to be faced with the other fears that I spoke about earlier, about the corruption, about every fear that other entities are afraid of, like the IMF and the United Nations and the European Union and the diaspora. We are also afraid. We have the same fears, but if things change in Lebanon and there's promising approach to encouraging
by exporting goods and products to the US. What kind of fear you have by encouraging local agriculture who is planting different kind of vegetables and fruits to also get it with the right ISO to many states in America and the biggest market like we've seen in the wine industry? What kind of fear you would have if you're able actually to help some sectors in Lebanon to be able to sell their products in the US?
This is a great idea. We can have entrepreneurial exchange between the diaspora and Lebanon. And we can have not only import wine and our fruit, and we can import from the United States and other parts of the world the latest technology and modern tools the world has to offer. We have very educated youth in Lebanon. We have that can enrich Lebanon's economy and the education system, and the industrial and agriculture.
Ingenious smart people that made difference all around the world. Now they are stuck in this country. They cannot leave for many reasons. Mr. Garbat, thanks again. I'll get back to you. I will get back to you with a recommendation this time. Think about 3 recommendations that you would give us and share with the current administration, because all your input is going to be shared with the U.S. Embassy and the U.S. administration. Ambassador Gabriel, you always have this thing that you cannot yet achieve, that you would really love to achieve, probably by adding the aids to the Lebanese army. You're a champion. Good job by working with this administration. You're a Democrat. I think you have a good communication with your folks on this one. You also try to find a way of giving them $100 a month that no one could really achieve this. Probably your communication with Ambassador Shea is perfectly translated in this regard. But what would be the top priority for Ed Gabriel, for this ambassador that knows the political game in Washington, and he knows the red line, but he wants to push it to the end? What would be your priority on this one?
Thank you, Alan. First, let me just say, I think your reporting skills have been excellent during this hour together. I think you've really prodded us into some very good answers. I do want to say, because it may give the wrong impression, the four of us are on the same page. The four of us are working very hard, probably for free. I know I am. Probably,
I know that, by the way.
Probably for free to help Lebanon. Now, having said that, let me just underscore one thing Joe said. He was very eloquent in his last discussion point. America needs a partner. At some point, when do they give up? America is begging the Minister of Energy to do some very minimal stuff for the energy program. They're begging, the government to do some very minimal stuff for reform projects. I could go on and on. The point here is we need a partner. And at what point does the Russian-Ukrainian war take much more precedent? At what point does the competition with China overwhelm us? At what point do refugees in the world from Ukraine and other places take priority? If Lebanon leadership would show that we've got a partner, we can get a lot more done. So that's the point I want to make on Joe. The other thing I want to say about to Tony, and I'm glad he brought it up, is the definition of a diaspora. I think that's really important. ATFL is made up of Americans of Lebanese ancestry. Some hold dual passports, but ATFL is very unique in one regard, and that is we see a policy through U.S. eyes. We're Americans. Some of us are second and third generation. So we're looking at the U.S.-Lebanon problem as Americans. That gives us a special opportunity to listen. In Lebanon. We have to listen in Lebanon, and we have to listen to people like those who are on the screen today. We have to learn to be better listeners than talkers. The statements that come out from the various governments, et cetera, are wonderful, but we need people who are going to put into action things. And, in that sense, I forgot to mention, we're now starting an education effort because, as Tony and others said, it's in the dumper.
True.
Public education is almost dead.
True.
We've got to focus on that. We're doing that, and we want others to join with us. We've got the expertise bringing together on that project. And I must say, on the last point about LAF, you're right. We did get a livelihood account program going. Now we have a funding mechanism for it through the UN Development Program, UNDP. So our next effort there will also be to keep it going. So we're actively involved on all fronts, and something that I'm proud of to work with Joe and others in Washington on. Now, what's the one thing that I wish? Here's what I wish, Alan. I sit with my staff recently, and I said, you guys have done a remarkable job. You've taken U.S. policy towards Lebanon to new heights. It's new attention. You've got Congress focus. You got the House focus. We've got the administration working very hard on this stuff. We're not taking all the credit. Joe is on the screen, and there are others. MEI, Middle East Institute, with Paul Salem there. There's so many good institutions working so hard on this. But I say to them, congratulations, great job. But you know what? We haven't saved Lebanon yet. So my hope is, and I know one person can't do that, but I want the Lebanese people to know that they got a bunch of people in Washington and across the United States that care and will really work on this till their dying day.
Wow. You know, Ambassador, I've been working in Washington since 2010. I've seen a difference in how you guys took this ATFL to the next level. When I say that, that means you got everybody's attention now, and no one can mess with this group because they have so much power in DC because you're working together. And as you mentioned, when Americans listen to Americans, it's a leverage. And when Americans listen to Lebanese, they can actually approach all opinions to this administration or other administrations. Dr. Jubaili, I want to understand from you this very important point. Also, this question could be asked for Ambassador Gabriel. So we've seen lots of Lebanese are willing to help Lebanon. They are united in some groups like ATF, like other ones. Do we have the same movement in Europe? Because now it seems Europe is a very important player about Lebanon. France, now they have arguments with the US on many issues in Lebanon. But do we have this force, this task force that could do the same work that Lebanese Americans are doing in the US?
It's interesting you're bringing up that point, Alan, because we started about a year or so ago a group called Lebanese American Coordinating Committee, and now we're up to 8 organizations. So we brought some organizations together to agree, of course, on a clear objectives. So it's not just getting together and chatting about Lebanon. We have to have principles that we agree on. And interestingly, just the past maybe couple of weeks, I've heard that they're trying to do the same thing, to replicate the same thing in Paris, and thinking about doing also the same thing in other capitals in Europe. So that's very encouraging. I've been in communication with some of the groups that are working on this in Paris, and hopefully they will succeed. And yes, if we can have that model of Lebanese working together in different capitals, especially in major capitals like Paris, obviously, and other countries, maybe that would be great. I want to add to what Ed was mentioning earlier about the efforts that as Lebanese Americans we're undertaking in Washington, and the message that we could give at this point. And you talk, of course, about recommendations. I mean, obviously, we do have recommendations always for, and they will welcome administrations, members of Congress, certain reasonable and sensible recommendation on certain issues. When we talk about assistance, the LAF, livelihood, and ISF, of course, they're going to benefit from this as well. Other thing related to sanctions. I mean, these are 2 important things that the administration, that in the hand of the American decision maker, policy makers, the assistance and the sanctions. Then the diplomatic efforts, whether again with France or other friends of Lebanon. So we're going to continue doing this work. We want to fight any sort of American or foreign policy fatigue, because yes, that could exist. Just to a minor thing when you address the issue with Anis about the effort being done. This has started recently, and I think it's progressing. The matter of how we can help, how the Lebanese Americans can help Lebanese businesses. But already the money that's been sent there, Tony mentioned it, $8 billion. That's creating jobs in Lebanon, outsourcing jobs. Just helping your own family and your own relatives in Lebanon. That's a lot, and that's the other day I was talking to, I think, Ed or John with ATFL, trying to do an estimate how much Lebanese Americans helped in the past couple of years. And the numbers, Alain, are in the tens of millions. We're talking $20-30 million. Some of it in kind, some of it in cash. So yes, Lebanese Americans are helping the Lebanese people also, not just with US officials, but directly as well.
Thank you so much.
Joseph Jbaili. Mr. Tony Nissi, one quick recommendation. Sorry, we're running out of time, and this conversation was very interesting, and time runs very quickly. And thanks for all of you to be here today. So please let me hear from you. One major recommendation you'd like us to hear today. We can also share it with the U.S. administration.
I need to say a small thing before Alain.
Go ahead.
What I heard from Ed Gabriel today is excellent, my friend, because we really need an American group working for Lebanon, and not only a Lebanese group advocating for Lebanon in the United States. This is the bridge that we were talking about. This is a kind of a bridge. Listen, I believe, Alain, that first we need to be united. We need to have a program between the Lebanese diaspora and the Lebanese diaspora. We need to be able to sustain our institutions, starting by the education to everything else. And also we need to have a plan, and we need to create the partner. Yes, Ed, you're right. Everybody needs a partner, especially a country like the United States. A democratic country needs a partner, a real partner. So we need to be able to do it. And I guess the 4 people here represents enough to sit on the table and try to find a solution.
I'm happy that we have this conversation here that's part of a dialogue. Sometimes, you'll be aligned on the same ideas, but the distance also could play a big role now. This technology brought us all together. Mr. Anis Garabat, if you give us a quick recommendation, and then we can close this conversation, and hopefully we'll meet at another time with better times, probably at a time where we celebrate Save Lebanon. Then me and Ambassador Gabriel will be just having a blast, but of course it's going to take lots of hard work, and we depend on you guys. Anis Garabat, go ahead.
I give you 3 recommendations. As Tony Nissi spoke about partnership, the Lebanese and diaspora NGOs can partner together with the USAID and work towards outsourcing jobs to Lebanon and provide professional services to US companies and developers. That's one idea. The other idea is like we experienced in Los Angeles, promotion of sister city projects, like Beirut and LA have achieved. Since then, the municipality of Beirut has received ambulances, hospital beds, medical equipment from LA, as well as sanitation facilities, computer software to help with city traffic synchronization, worth millions of dollars. Number 3, we do like what the WLCU is doing, like we encourage the Lebanese NGOs to associate with the United Nations and embark toward achieving the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, which will be like consultants to the United Nations, especially the ECOSOC. And that would be the organs and agencies of the UN will be more than happy to assist in lots of services for Lebanon, and Lebanon can benefit from our society that way. So these are my 3 recommendations: sister cities, UN, and USAID.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Garabat and Mr. Nissi, Dr. Jbaili, Ambassador Gabriel, thanks so much for joining us on this interesting panel about Lebanon. I'm always excited to talk about Lebanon every day. Hopefully, we all see at the end of the darkness, a light that we hope for a better Lebanon. The main Shidia Foundation Media Institute is conducting this panel that was under the role of the Lebanese diaspora during Lebanon's current crisis. We thank you also the collaboration with the Public Diplomacy section at the U.S. Embassy in Beirut. And thanks again for organizing this project. Thanks for watching us. Goodbye.